Let's begin with a formal definition of sociology. The American Sociological Association defines the field of sociology as the study of social life, social change, and the social causes and consequences of human behavior. Basically, sociologists study people. Anything having to do with people is of interest to sociologists, whether it be an athlete taking steroids or a country deciding to go to war. And people who get degrees in sociology go on to do just about anything involving people, whether that be alcohol and drug counseling or teaching classes in sociology. What defines us as sociologists isn't a particular subject matter or a specific occupation. It's a way of looking at and understanding the world. Sociologists attempt to step back, look at the world objectively, and try to find patterns. And then we use these patterns to develop ideas or theories about how society. Some sociologists describe this viewpoint as looking down from the roof of a really tall building at the people walking on the sidewalk below. From the vantage point of up high on that roof, we're interested less in the individual people and more in the social groups that they form and the patterns that they manifest. This idea of linking the individual to the larger social group or society is the essence of what we call the sociological imagination. And this was a concept that was developed by one of the most renowned sociologists in U.S. history, a man by the name of C. Wright Mills. Mills is perhaps most famous for a book that he wrote called The Sociological Imagination. Written in 1959, it links the relationship between the individual and the society. Specifically, it connects our personal problems and circumstances to conditions in our larger social environment. For class, you read the introductory chapter of this book, The Sociological Imagination. And let me quote from it briefly. Nowadays, men often feel that their private lives are a series of traps. They sense that within their everyday worlds, they cannot overcome these troubles. Mills argues that these troubles are in fact products of larger social forces. They're what he calls public issues. Let me give you an example. Foreclosing on your house is a personal trouble, but it's also tied to a larger social phenomenon. Since the 1980s, real wages have gone down and housing prices have gone up. So most people who want to buy a house must do so on credit. Banks, in turn, have been giving loans to people who can't afford to pay them back. So we see a pattern of home foreclosures. In this case, home foreclosure is also a public issue. To understand the connection between personal troubles and public issues, Mills introduces the idea of the sociological imagination. And in his own words, this is the idea that the individual can understand his own circumstances only by becoming aware of all individuals in his circumstances. So home foreclosure might be the product of bad personal finances. But if it's one of thousands of home foreclosures, it's also the product of larger social conditions and therefore a public issue. I like using the example of Dr. Phil here. Dr. Phil is the pop psychologist that helps people identify their personal problems and look within themselves to figure out a way to overcome these problems. The sociologist doesn't look within the individual. The sociologist looks outside the individual to the larger social conditions that cause those personal troubles and comes up with ways of overcoming those larger social problems. For this course, I invite you to develop your own sociological imagination, to tie your own personal circumstances to our larger society. I invite you on a one-semester journey to look at the world the way a sociologist would, scientifically, critically, and curiously. I look forward to working with you this semester and introducing you to a very exciting field of study. Thank you.